One of the great things about riding a bicycle is you don't even really have to be going anywhere. You just want to get out and ride. So we're up early in Manhattan. I'm going to ride from the East Village to the West Village today and back. It's a pretty simple loop. It's early, not too early. Over on my left, you can see Tompkins Square Park, around since maybe, I don't know, early 1800s. Traffic is pretty easy this time of morning. Today's Friday though, so sometimes you get a lot of Thursday night's a late night party night. So a lot of kids can be around. I mean, the great thing about New York, and particularly this area, it's like OG Ellis Island. This is where everybody came when they first came here. Spalding Gray, one of the heroic monologuists, called Manhattan an island off the coast of America, and that's something that I really like. I think of this place all the time as an island off the coast of America. So right now we have these guys here, all these delivery guys. They're all West African cats who've come here to deliver. It's pretty crazy. So if you can imagine, at one point here on First Avenue, the elevated train used to be here. So if you've ever been anywhere else in New York where there's an elevated train, it's crazy, where it's like erector set scaffolding coming down to the ground. They even had steam trains, but 1 million immigrants living under there. I mean, Manhattan is not as crowded as it used to be. I think in like 1910 was like the peak, but just like people living in tenements. Pretty fucking crazy. Beautiful morning. You can hear the birds. Moby used to have an apartment there. 1 million famous people rocking around here. So we come here to 2nd Avenue. This used to be like the Yiddish Broadway. There was all these theaters and newspapers and cafes because in the Lower East Side there was a ton of Jewish people. Very crazy. Now, this is a super interesting place. Peter Stuyvesant, there's a lot of Peters in this story, built this church, or he had the land for it. He was the last of the Dutch guys running this place before the English took over. You may notice that the street here in front of the church goes at an angle, off the grid. You don't see that anywhere else in New York, really. Greenwich Village has its own little thing, but basically, this was here before the grid got placed on top of it that everybody knows New York for. Now, part of the reason was the Dutch guys had been here 100 years. I mean, 100 years before the Revolution, this place is when the English took over. And one of the things I like to joke about here is that New York, Manhattan, is a more liberal place than most places because the Dutch were here. And the Dutch believed in free trade, and the Dutch were a little bit more open about religion. And then when a bunch of stodgy British Puritans showed up, they were unable to turn New York into Boston. Beautiful morning. A little bit of traffic. 3rd Avenue is a little pokey. I hate for you to have to watch me strain on my bike. One of the things about New York too, at least people think about it that way a lot, is that the further west you go, the richer it would be. So over in the neighborhoods where the early German immigrants and Ukrainians and the Poles, Puerto Ricans and Jews, they were all shacked up over there. But as we head towards 5th Avenue, which was essentially, you know, the richest of the rich. I mean, it's synonymous with being unfathomably wealthy, right? The Gilded Age. And down here, there's a neighborhood that we'll get to eventually that's pretty incredible. I know it's still there, kind of hidden in the midst. I'm really getting caught by some traffic this morning. Anyway, as you go west, things get progressively nicer and grander. Beautiful morning. I'd say it's about 69 degrees here in New York City. It's a Friday. There's not much more you can ask for. I mean, what I like about riding a bicycle is just, my whole motto is coasting is not a crime. This is what we love about life. Riding around with no hands, not having to pedal, praying you don't get hit by a car or another bicycle. But for the most part, it's fun. What's interesting too is the mayor has declared that there's going to be blocks in front of all public schools where the kids can play soccer. So it's going to be interesting to see when that happens. It's going to have to, and I guess there's not school in the summer times. Bubkus. Still, it'll be interesting to see if there's streets blocked off in front of schools and who is there playing. Okay, here's Fifth Avenue. Blah, blah, blah. One of the wildest places in the history of the world, or the modern world. As you can see, dead ahead is Washington Square Park, which for a long time was just a potter's field. They just buried people who they didn't know who they were, poor people. It isn't really sought after down here so much. Now, this place is like, it's as kind of democratic as anything. There's a ton of students in there always, guys selling stuff, you buy weed, dancing, musicians, people trying to get people to come to their comedy shows down in McDougal, which is right over here. That was George Washington. Anyway, it's a nice big park. It will be jammed with tourists and kids and junkies and people who walk their dogs. Dog walking being, dog parks, I should say even, are like a really particular part of the city. You know?
Like, are you serious?
People out here taking care of business. I always tell when people are on a Zoom call, doing some work, but you can see the arch, it's pretty fucking dope. I think they built this around 1900 maybe. And, this is Washington Square North. This is the stuff of Henry James. Didn't he write a novel called Washington Square Park, maybe? Yeah, I think that his family had a house somewhere on here, and these used to be really, especially behind me, some really, really cool pads. These are still pretty damn cool. But a lot of NYU has sucked them up now. So as you look over to your left a little bit, I should have written in there, this is where they play chess. So go up on the curb here a little bit. Can go in this way. This is not the super popular end of the chess. That's over on the north side of it. But early morning in the park is pretty sweet. You can hear the birds. New York City is filled with birds. One of the interesting things is there's a ton of different honey in New York City because there's so many crazy plants on people's roofs. If anything, I can convince you to get out and ride around on your bicycle with no hands and not worry about shit. That's all I really want. Here's the chess corner. So we circled the park. Oh, one interesting thing is that's McDougal Street right there. Kind of ground zero of beatnik coffee shop stuff. When the algorithm tries to tell you what's cool now, it's essentially what they're shooting for. I think William Gibson wrote an interesting article decades ago about the end of Bohemia. I don't think he could have even predicted what would really happen. That there's no secrets left, right? Now there's some Yahoo, some content creator going, hey, go over here. Great hot dog. Look at the, you can see the yard's really cool there. Beautiful sunlight. So a lot of this street is dominated by NYU, as you see. One of these is the big library. This is it. Unfortunately, has kind of a bad reputation. But, as I've said many times, I've been riding this Cook Brothers racing frame, number 695, for probably about 40 years. So I bought it in Austin, Texas. Steel frame, one gear, coaster brake. Really is all you need here in the city. You can sit up straighter. People who ride down in the drops and spandex, for me, it's a little crazy. Because the roads are more like Paris-Roubaix. Let's see if we can get something. Experiment. It's early morning. So again, here is maybe the most famous street on Broadway, which was essentially an old Indian path. People have been walking up and down that long before there was a New York, long before there was a Manhattan, before the Dutch, before the English. It just goes to show you that people start walking up and down a path, it becomes super popular. And they build a road. Some Yahoo starts riding a bicycle. Turns into something cool. So right here is kind of cool. So we approach Astor Place here. This was one of the most sought after neighborhoods on earth for a time. Eventually they all move uptown on Fifth Avenue, but John Jacob Astor, they built these crazy, I don't know how many of them there were, 8 connected marble townhomes. You can see the columns still left there. This used to be the Astor Library, now it's a public theater. Another super cool building, I think the Village Voice building is right here somewhere. These are super cool, crazy. I mean, that's some old school New York money there. As you get to Astor Place, right, it's hard to imagine because there's like a Wegmans grocery store there, which for a while was a Kmart, which took a little bit of the joy out of it, Raising Cane. But this was the Astor Place riot happened here. 20 people were killed arguing about Shakespeare, but no, it wasn't really about Shakespeare, it was about class. The Cube, which is quite cute. And there it is, the famous Cooper Union. Peter Cooper started a school because he thought that people of all stripes should be able to get an education. And it was free for a long time. It's a private school. One of the really interesting things about it is that Lincoln gave an anti-slavery speech about the West, progressing westward, and it was kind of his beginning of running for president. Yeah, so Astor Place is a pretty cool old school scene that's kind of lost in the midst that you don't really know. A little generic shopping and shit there now. What I'm waiting for here. We're running a little late, so there's a little more traffic than when I can usually just roll right through this. So now we're entering St. Mark's Place. So for, I don't know, 150 years, anybody could find themselves here. In the early 1800s, it was Germans. This whole place was German speaking. In fact, that right there is the German shooting club. You can believe that. I don't think you can take a rifle in there and shoot anymore, but you used to. Then, successively you get the Beats coming here, the hippies, the punks. It's really sort of a catch-all, and it's still pretty jamming. You come down here almost any evening, or especially on the weekend, it can be really packed. You know, a lot of it is tourists, but there's a lot of people playing cosplay, punk rockers, and gutter punks and stuff like that. It's an interesting place. It's just a little bit of everybody here. Right up here, I think, was where Leon Trotsky, who was here, then he went home and started a revolution. So he had all kinds of communists, crazy thinkers. And I think you should read the Ada Calhoun book, St. Mark's is Dead. There's a Ukrainian flag. Now it's loaded with Ukrainians. I mean, in some ways it's called the Little Ukraine. Holiday Cocktail Lounge. Some of these places are quite legendary for the debauchery, but also the political intrigue. As we come up here to the rest of St. Mark's, you know, we also have a lot of rock and roll history here. I mean, punk rock, which seems a little dated at this point, but, you know, people love Blondie and the Ramones. That actually is the Led Zeppelin cover physical graffiti building. Crazy as it sounds. Now, this area has been rejuvenated recently by what we would call finance bros a little bit. They block off the whole street Fridays and Saturdays. And it's packed, and people are spending money, but no one looks like they're having that much fun. That could be just an old man kvetch. But as you see, we're approaching now the illustrious, the legendary, the infamous Tompkins Square Park. I guess I could just roll right straight in there. I don't know, early 19th century. Look, these cones are out here probably because it's going to be making a TV show or something here soon. Anyway, this park, it really is for everybody claiming it. You know, Puerto Ricans, Ukrainians, Jews. This place has been here for a long, long time. And it's kind of a catch-all for people used to think it was really dangerous, or maybe they still do. So now the skateboarders have kind of taken this over. I mean, they've been here for decades now, but it's kind of a street skate mecca here. If you're good, you come to New York and you skate, and you're not just going to one of the skate parks. You're gonna come here. You can see it's a really nice street, like Richard Hill. Tons of punks live along there. Some other people whose names I won't name because we don't want to out them because they're still alive. Look at beautiful morning out here. Coasting is not a crime. Oops. Yeah, the park is famous because of the Tompkins Square riot, which is about the park closing at night, and it was just squatters raising hell. So, I mean, in the late 70s, early 80s, even into the 90s a little bit, this was kind of a dangerous neck of the woods. People did not come down here to fucking sightsee, or to get a special bagel, or eat a cream puff. You know, there's so much foodie tourism, which is cool. You see kids lined up, looking at their Instagram feed, waiting for hours for one little thing, some Irish soda bread or something, and you're just like, all right. This is essentially what you would call, or was once called, but not by many, is like Alphabet City. Now, there was really not too many buildings here. And it was a great place to score drugs. You could go down in some of these buildings. I don't want to out anybody. When you bang on the door, you go in, there's a guy with a gun. And they have two buckets, one for heroin, one for coke. They drop them down, you throw your money in, and they bring it back up. Now, let me tell you, this is when drugs were illegal. It's not like buying some pot at the fucking, you know, the Apple store. Someone's talking to you all about it. Crazy. But the park is cool. And right now, again, immigrants, immigrants, immigrants. There's a lot of free food and things like that. You've heard a lot of New York camping stuff. This bar has been here forever. Anyway, and you know, there's the famous Krishna tree in the middle of the park. You can look it up. The Hare Krishnas really got their jump off here. And there's tons of shows here still. They still have, on the weekends, when the weather gets warmer, a company called Showbrain puts on punk rock shows. So every now and then you'll just be walking through there and you're like, holy shit, is that Fang playing? Anyway, it's all biking. Oh, wow.